What's going on YouTube? JT Born here, and welcome back to another edition of my DC comic book reviews. And in this video, we're going to be talking about DC versus Vampires, issue number 7 of 12, which is kind of a lie because we got all the various spin-off issues. But the main storyline is back after a several-month hiatus. I actually kind of forgot a lot that happened in the previous issue. I think I'm going to have to go back and reread them all, because, I mean, last week we covered DC versus Vampires Killers, and I think the month before talked about DC versus Vampires Hunters, and that was the Damian Wayne one, and then we got the Harley one last week, and then I think the month before that was the big reveal of Dick Grayson and all that. I can't remember the exact issue of it, but this is set a few years, or there's a bit of a considerable time jump since that. Most of the world has been taken over by vampires, like we saw that Superman somehow got turned, which there's a few questionable things going on in DC Vampires. Like, I feel like some characters shouldn't be able to turn into vampires, like Superman in particular. They're Kryptonians, like their cells like absorb solar radiation, sunlight. Like, what's the point? Okay, so if you turn him, that just pretty much inhibits him and his power's kind of useless. I feel like that should have been something where, like, why don't they just kill Superman off as opposed to just turning him into a vampire? Because if Superman's a vampire, he's not going to have his strength because his strength is drawn from solar radiation. It just feels like something that's counteractive to the vampire stuff, because, like, sunlight kills them. That's why they blocked out the sun. So it's like, what's the point of this? Like, why not just kind of kill him off or something instead of trying to turn him? So I don't know what the deal with that is, but, most of the Justice League has been kind of turned, and various villains in that across the world have been turned into vampires. Most of the Bat family is pretty much gone, although we remember, like, Damian and Alfred were kind of off doing their own thing after trying to take down the Vampire King, Dick Grayson. Bab shows up in this thing. There's also, like, an ambush going on here. They do make reference to another storyline here. Check out DC vs. Vampires All-Out War #1 on sale. So like I said, it feels like we kind of are missing a story. I wish they would have released that before that particular one shot before this. I will say this about DC versus Vampires that's been kind of interesting in it, that it feels like a much more grand and epic storyline. A lot more is going on, and I feel consequences more than I do the big Dark Crisis event that's going on in DC. Like, I feel more stakes, suspense. It really feels like an end of the world type situation, whereas Dark Crisis, I'm just not really getting that like I am this thing. Again, this is an Elseworld storyline, so they're kind of more creative and freely allowed to kind of do their own thing. But I do feel the stakes in each and every issue. I do feel the suspense because I don't know who's going to be a vampire. I mean, that's kind of leading to some logical questioning. There's some questionable decisions. Boy, I can't really talk this morning. There's some questionable things that go on in DC versus Vampires. Like I said, I feel like certain characters probably shouldn't be able to be turned into vampires given their abilities, like Firestorm and that. Isn't he like a being of, like, energy and stuff? Like, I don't know how you're going to turn that into a vampire. Wouldn't he just kind of implode? Like I said, there's a few questionable things, and I feel like it would have been a little bit easier to just be like, look, certain characters can't turn into vampires. It's just they have little defense mechanisms, or their powers don't line up with what a vampire is per se, and they should just that should just inhibit some of their abilities. That's a few, like, logical gaps in terms of, like, what we were led to believe about vampires. Like, holy water can kill them, direct sunlight can, which means, like, Kryptonians that shouldn't be able to. So certain characters I feel like shouldn't be able to be turned into vampires. I think that would have solved a lot of issues. So if, like, the vampires, say, just kind of killed them off, then that'd be one thing entirely. So a few things. Like I said, we have this, like, group here that gets ambushed by a bunch of vampires. We have, like, Larry Trainor in that. There's Peacemaker. Plastic Man is, like, a Cobra. Director Bones is there. Wonder Woman shows up trying to, like, wreak havoc on all of them, like Firestorm, like Killer Frost, and all sorts of different characters show up. Raven shows up for, like, one quick little panel here. Art's done by Otto Schmidt, I should have mentioned, and then Matthew Rosenberg in that. And James Tynion wrote the story here. I was like, oh, sweet, Raven's here. And then she gets bitten, I guess, and turned by Plastic Man, who's, like, this little snake-type creature, vampire thing. So, yeah, that's something. I'm sorry, Raven. I wish Raven would have a bigger storyline in this thing. I feel like Raven is, like, one of the most powerful characters in all of DC Comics, and she's just kind of... They don't really showcase her power too much. I feel like she should be one of the main heroes of the storyline. And plus, if Damian's able to resist, like, the whole vampirism thing, I feel like Raven should be able to too. Maybe Trigon's able to help her out, or magic or something. I don't know what's going to go on him, but I think there was like this big explosion thing, and maybe they might have killed her off. But I'm kind of disappointed that she seems to be kind of taken out of the story after only like 2 panels in that. So I'm sorry, Raven fans. But there's also something interesting here with one of the Wonder Twins here, and you can see she's got a different haircut. She's like this badass vampire killer. Like, that sounds kind of interesting. It's not something you typically see with the Wonder Twins per se. Like, I always just have this envision of like Wonder Twins unite, and then we have like gone full post-apocalyptic vampire hunter. I'm like, okay, that's a storyline I want to see. So her and Director Bones kind of drive to this little location here. Killer Croc is there, and they're trying to find like the lost city. They have like the lost city of Kandor. Kara Zor-El was actually one of the prized people they were protecting in the car, in that little like, whatever the word I'm looking for, a group of vehicles that got attacked. So like, the thing with Kara is they need her because, well, she's Supergirl. She's like the most powerful like being on the planet. If she can like somehow access the sun, they should be able to stop a lot of these vampires. So there's that there. We have the lost city of Kandor going on as well. A lot of the characters have been kind of hiding in there. You have Constantine's, you have Green Arrow, you have Steel, you have Batgirl, and all this other stuff going on there. So like I said, there's some exciting stuff here. Babs, Dr. Fate's there too. And Babs says wants to go to Gotham so she can kill Dick Grayson, which is going to be interesting because like the two of them have obviously been, together at some point. And like, even if you read the other issues, Dick was trying to go and find her, I guess, to make her like his vampire queen and stuff. That ought to be kind of interesting. Dick and Barbara is like vampire king and queen, although that definitely has some Dracula vibes with Dracula kind of looking for like his bride to be. So I'm really interested in seeing how Dick Grayson became the Vampire King. I think that's going to be an actually like pretty exciting storyline to see it kind of unfold. Looking forward to whenever they release that storyline. I don't know when that's going to be, but I am excited to find out what's going on there. So yeah, like I said, they want to find the sun. We also have Harley Quinn. So if you read the previous issue, who's been apprehended, and they're trying to do experiments on her blood because Lex Luthor's blood got injected into her in the previous like spin-off one-shot issue or whatever it was that we read last week. Was a DC versus Vampires Killers, where we found that like Lex Luthor's blood was like the key to all this stuff, and she injected it in herself. So there's that going on there. So there's a lot of stuff that happens each issue of DC versus Vampires, but it definitely keeps me on the edge of my seat. I really like Otto Schmidt's artwork. I think it's been really good in each and every issue. I've been enjoying the story. There's a lot of suspense and stakes with each and everything going on every single issue. Sucks that we had such a long delay between issues 6 and 7. There are some important plot details that you kind of have to read the other like one-shot storylines, like, so those don't feel entirely useless. Although there is one questionable thing where they mentioned a story that hasn't been released, and it's not going to be released for another couple weeks. That's like takes place before this particular issue. So I'm kind of questioning like why they didn't release that before this issue. But that's just the way things go, I guess, with DC sometimes. Still bummed about Raven kind of getting the axe early on. I wish she could have had a larger role, but maybe she's still alive somewhere. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell like what exactly happened. And there's a few things that do leave me scratching my head. Like I said, I feel like certain characters shouldn't be able to turn into vampires. Or like if they're turned into vampires, they seem kind of useless. Like Superman, for example. Power comes from the sun. If he's turned into a vampire, say somehow you do turn into a vampire, his powers would be inhibited, useless. He'd just be kind of like an average guy, and then the moment he hits the sun, he's not going to enhance his strength. He's just, going to die because of direct sunlight. I feel like that kind of contradicts certain things, but who knows? Maybe they'll have an explanation for all this stuff, but I just feel like it would make more sense if certain characters just couldn't become vampires. But with that said, I am enjoying DC versus Vampires. I think it's been a really fun, entertaining series. Like I said, the suspense is kept up with each and every issue because you don't know who a vampire is, and it really creates a truly hopeless situation and really adds to the stakes of each and every issue when you don't know who's a vampire, and they just keep adding things to make things worse for the heroes, and you're left wondering, how the hell are they going to get out of this situation? So you got me like asking those questions, and I think that makes the story a little bit more engaging. I'm curious to see how they're able to like figure this thing out. Obviously they're trying to hatch a plan to open up the earth to kind of, or like the clouds, like move those away so that we can get like some sunlight. but it'll be interesting to see how they're able to kind of survive this whole situation and figure things out, and how certain characters will act, and what the big conclusion to all this is going to be. I'm just excited to see the storyline unfold. So I've really enjoyed DC versus Vampires. This one, maybe not the strongest issue, because like I said, there's a few things left me questioning a few things, but I mean, I've been consistently entertained, and I think it's definitely a recommend. So anyways, what are your thoughts on DC versus Vampires issue number 7 of 12, which, you know, that's feels kind of like a lie because you got all the spin-offs and stuff. Let me know in the comment section down below. Be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content, hit the bell for notifications. And I think that's going to wrap it up for the comic book reviews in terms of this week, because I covered Joker today, and I also covered this one, and I covered the 2 other issues yesterday, which are doing pretty well view-wise. So thanks everybody for checking those videos out and leaving likes and comments and all that. So all right, well, that's all I got to say. As always, take care now. Bye-bye then, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace.